My wife's infidelity. I froze her accounts and trust as she paid the price. The faint hum of the Pacific Ocean seeps through the glass walls of my cliffside study in Big Sur, a constant murmur beneath the bruised purple dusk settling over the California coast. It's October 17th, 2025, and my smartwatch glows with the date, a silent reminder of the night I've been orchestrating for months. My fingers hover over the keys of my custom-built laptop, its screen casting a cold blue sheen across my face. High cheekbones hardened by years of discipline, a jawline sharpened by resolve, and steel-gray eyes that don't flinch. At 52, I'm no longer the scrawny kid who clawed his way out of Oakland's cracked streets with nothing but a knack for code and a hunger to prove myself. I'm Victor Grayson, the architect of Grayson Dynamics, a cybersecurity empire worth billions. A man who's turned algorithms into unbreachable walls, and tonight into a weapon I've honed for one purpose: her. The live feed flickers to life on my secondary monitor, grainy for a heartbeat before sharpening into a scene that twists my gut like a rusted blade. There she is, Lila, my wife of 25 years, pressed against Julian Navarro in the backseat of a chauffeured Bentley. Her lips brush his neck, her fingers tangle in his dark curls, and I feel my breath catch, not from shock I've known for months, but from the molten fury surging through my veins. The timestamp sears into the corner of the screen. 8:47 p.m. Rain streaks the car's tinted windows, smudging the Monterey Peninsula's coastal highway outside, but nothing can blur the betrayal playing out in front of me. Lila, the woman I lifted from a paint-splattered garret to a throne among Silicon Valley's elite, has gambled my trust on a Playboy sculptor with a Rolex and a smile that's all charm and no substance. I lean back in my leather chair, the creak slicing through the stillness of my study. This room is a testament to everything I've built. Polished oak floors gleam under the soft glow of a single Noguchi lamp. Stark furniture faces walls of glass that frame the restless ocean below, and a bottle of 18-year-old Macallan sits unopened on my mahogany desk. I don't need whiskey to fuel what's coming. I need clarity, and I've got it in spades. For 6 months, I've been crafting Obsidian, a digital guillotine so precise it's almost poetic. One command, and Lila's world, her wealth, her status, the carefully curated illusion she's spun, will collapse into ashes. My finger hovers over the enter key, trembling not from fear but from the weight of 25 years pressing down on me. Her laughter in our first cramped apartment, her paint-smeared hands brushing my cheek, the dreams we shared over cheap wine. It hurts, a dull ache in my chest, but it doesn't stop me. At 8:50 p.m., I press the key. The screen flares white, then settles into a progress bar, initiating Obsidian protocol. She loaded the gun with her infidelity. I'm just pulling the trigger. I wasn't always this man, sitting atop a cliff like some vengeful god staring down at a world I've shaped. 30 years ago, I was a wiry kid in an Oakland tenement, hunched over a salvaged Commodore 64, teaching myself to code while my mother stitched factory uniforms until her fingers bled. The hum of that wheezing machine was my lifeline, a way out of the roaches and the peeling paint and the endless grind of poverty. At 17, I hacked into UC Berkeley systems, not to steal, just to prove I could, and turned that stunt into a scholarship instead of a jail sentence. By 27, I'd founded Grayson Dynamics, taking my talent for cracking networks and flipping it into a business that shielded them. Governments, tech giants, banks, they all pay me to build walls no one can breach, and I've delivered every time. My name's a badge of trust, a guarantee that what I protect stays safe. And Lila? She was my anchor, my muse, the spark that kept me burning when the nights got long. We met in 2000 at a San Francisco art fair, back when I was still a nobody with a cheap suit and a head full of wild ideas. She was a painter, all smudged jeans and a voice like velvet, clutching a sketchbook like it was her soul. I was pitching my first startup to anyone who'd listen, and she caught me mid-ramble, sketching my profile while I talked about algorithms over diner coffee. She called me her quiet storm, said I had a fire she could feel even when I didn't speak. A year later, we married in a courthouse, her in a thrift store dress, me in a borrowed tie. I drafted a prenup on a whim, barely a page, scribbled in a fit of paranoia, and she signed it with a laugh, calling it adorably paranoid. Back then, She loved my hunger, my refusal to bend, the way I'd work until dawn to turn dreams into reality. We were broke, but we were a team. Success changed her, though slowly at first, then all at once. By 2025, our marriage is a hollowed-out shell, a relic of what it used to be. I spend my days in my labs, perfecting quantum encryption, building systems that keep the world's secrets safe, while Lila twirls through Silicon Valley's high society. She chairs art foundations, sips rose at vineyard soirees, and collects admirers like their trinkets for her ego. She stopped asking me to join her years ago, stopped caring when I said no. Her nights stretch late, her weekends vanish into retreats and gallery events. Her excuse is flimsier than the canvases she hasn't touched in a decade. At first, I let it slide, chalking it up to my own obsession with work. I'd be in my study until 3 a.m., chasing the next breakthrough, while she'd breeze in at dawn with a vague board meeting or donor dinner on her lips. I didn't want to see it. Didn't want to admit that the woman who once begged me to stay home now barely noticed I was gone. But doubt festers, and I'm not the kind of man who sits still when something's eating at him. 9 months ago, I turned my tools inward, weaponizing the skills that built my empire. I slipped a micro-tracker into her Tesla, hid cameras in our garage, and coded a backdoor into her phone. It wasn't spite, it was survival. I had to know. What I found ripped me open. Julian Navarro, a slimy artist with a trail of rich X's and a shark's grin, had her hooked. Hotel receipts piled up, Monterey, Napa, Carmel. Whispered calls at odd hours. Her voice low and giddy in ways it hadn't been with me in years. Photos of them arm in arm at events I wasn't invited to. Her leaning into him like he was the sun and I was a shadow. The worst was the audio, a recording from her phone I pulled late one night. "Victor's a machine? All code and no soul," she'd sneered, Julian's laugh crackling in the background. It was a slow poison, each piece of evidence a drop that burned through what was left of us. She traded me for a hustler who peddled driftwood sculptures and cheap flattery. I didn't storm in with accusations or smash anything in a fit of rage. That's not who I am. I plotted, cold and methodical, the way I've always approached a problem. That prenup, a forgotten scrap from our broke days, became my ace in the hole. Buried in its fine print. Infidelity nullifies her claim to my fortune and her $15 million inheritance from her late mother, a French heiress who'd seen Lila's fickleness from the start. Lila had signed it without reading, giggling that it'd never matter. She was sure we'd last forever. I gathered evidence like a general prepping for war. Timestamps, locations, bank records of her excess. 80 grand on couture gowns, 50 on spa trips, a secret fund fattened by my bonuses. Photos nailed her with Julian, kissing in hotel lobbies, laughing at vineyard bars. Audio files cut the deepest, her voice dripping with disdain as she mocked me to her lover. Each file stoked the fire in my chest, turning hurt into resolve. I coded Obsidian myself, a script so elegant it borders on art. A digital blade I've spent months sharpening. It's designed to sever her access to everything. Joint accounts, credit lines, savings, the inheritance. Her mother's lawyers tied it to the prenup, a clause she'd skimmed over, and my evidence flips the switch, funneling it all into a trust one control. She'll get nothing, not a dime beyond what I choose to give her. My finger hovers over the execute key, and I feel the weight of 25 years. Our first flat with its sagging couch, her easel squeezed next to my desk, the nights we dream over cheap Merlot. It's a sharp ache, a ghost of what we were, but it can't stop me. She fired first with her betrayal. At 8:50 p.m., I hit enter. The screen blazes, the progress bar climbing. 15%, 30%, 60%. Joint accounts seal shut. Credit cards die mid-transaction. Her personal savings, $6 million, all my blood and sweat. Freeze solid. Then the inheritance. $15 million. Gone in a blink. Redirected to my trust. At 100%, complete flashes across the screen. Her kingdom's ash. I lean back, the chair creaking under me, and stare at the rain-smeared glass. The ocean roars below, a wild counterpoint to the silence in my study. There's no joy in this, just a cold, steady resolve. She'll feel the wreckage soon, and I'll watch her unravel. I pull up her Tesla's tracker on my phone. Still at the Four Seasons Monterey Bay, parked outside the presidential suite where she's holed up with Julian. Let her linger in her delusion. Dawn will break her wide open. The next morning, Lila sweeps into the house at 11:12 a.m., her heels snapping on the slate foyer like gunfire. The scent of jasmine and Pinot Noir clings to her silk caftan, a faint echo of her night with him. She tosses her Hermes bag onto the kitchen counter, barely glancing at me as I stand by the island, nursing a mug of black coffee. "Victor, darling," she purrs, thumbing through her phone. "Wire me some cash. The gallery's hosting a donor lunch tomorrow. My card glitched at the hotel last night. Annoying bank nonsense, I'm sure." I set my mug down, the clink sharp enough to cut through her casual tone. "No glitch." She pauses, her head tilting, eyes narrowing slightly. "What?" "I canceled your cards," I say, my voice flat as steel. She lets out a laugh, high and brittle, like she thinks I'm joking. "Don't be ridiculous, Victor. You wouldn't." "I would." I interrupt, and I did. Her smile fades, unease creeping into her expression. She jabs at her phone, pulling up her banking app, and I watch her face twist. Confusion first, then dread, then full-blown panic. Personal account, 0. Joint account, access denied. Inheritance, locked. Her fingers tremble as she swipes again, hitting the same walls. "What the hell did you do?" she rasps, her voice breaking like glass. "I reclaimed what's mine," I say, crossing my arms. She slams her phone down on the counter, eyes blazing with fury. "This is illegal. You can't just steal my money. It was never yours." I shoot back, my tone icy. "Ours until you shattered it. We're married," she yells, her voice rising. "Half of everything. Half of nothing is nothing." I cut in, sliding a folder across the counter toward her. "Our prenup. 25 years ago, you signed it. Swore I was enough." She snatches it up, the pages shaking in her hands, her breath coming fast and uneven. I lean in, my voice dropping low and sharp. "You thought I'd let it fade. Let you carve me up and walk away with half my soul. Adultery kills it. Read the fine print." She freezes, her nails gouging the paper, her eyes darting over the words. "You have no proof," she spits, defiance flaring. I smirk, pulling my phone from my pocket and tapping the screen. A photo fills it. Her and Julian in the Four Seasons lobby, her lips pressed to his. Swipe. A grainy still from the suite's hallway, their shadows tangled as they slip inside. Swipe. Audio plays, her voice clear and cutting. "Victor's a ghost. He'll never know." She staggers back, the color draining from her face, her breath hitching. "You spied on me?" I observed. I correct, my tone cold and precise. "You thought I'd bankroll your fling. You miscalculated." Her hands shake, her voice barely a whisper. "Now what?" "Pack," I say, lifting my coffee again and taking a slow sip. 48 hours or you're trespassing." "Victor, please," she chokes out, tears brimming in her eyes. I faltered. "No," I say, my gaze hardening to steel. I faltered. I fixed it. I turn, stride to my study, and shut the door, leaving her broken in my wake. I watch her through the security feeds I've got wired into my office, a network of eyes I installed months ago. She stands there in the kitchen, clutching the island, disbelief warring with panic in her eyes. She doesn't believe it's real, not yet. She digs into her bag, yanks out a secret card, her offshore lifeline, a stash she thought I'd never find. She swipes into the app, and I see her shoulders slump as the balance loads. 0. I sniffed that out weeks ago, rerouted it with the rest. Her breath quickens, her fingers trembling as she dials Julian. It goes straight to voicemail. She tries again, then again, nothing. I knew he'd bolt the second her money dried up. He's a leech, not a savior. Her throat tightens. I can see it in the way her jaw clenches, and she grabs her keys, storming out to her Tesla. I track her as she speeds off, the GPS pinging her location. Stanford University, where our daughter Mara is a sophomore. I watch the library feed as Lila bursts in, her heels clicking furiously, and drags Mara out from a table strewn with textbooks. "Mom, what's wrong?" Mara asks, her voice sharp with suspicion. "Your trust fund?" Lila rasps, gripping her arm. "Your father cut me off. I'm broke. Transfer it to me now." Mara's laugh is bitter, a sound that echoes my own resolve. "You're kidding, right? Dad locked mine last month. No access until I'm 25 unless I prove myself. I set that up weeks ago, a lesson for them both." Lila's excess had bled into Mara, and I wasn't letting it stand. "No." Lila stammers, her voice cracking. "Yes." Mara snaps, wrenching her arm free. "He said we both needed to learn." "Mara, I need it." Lila pleads, desperation clawing at her tone. "You need to face it." Mara fires back. "Maybe he's right, we've drained him." "You're siding with him?" Lila gasps, her eyes wide. "I'm siding with myself," Mara says, turning and stalking off, leaving Lila stranded. I switch feeds, following Lila as she stumbles back to her car, her movements jerky, panicked. She dials her friend Celeste next, her voice trembling over the speaker I've tapped. "Celeste, I need a place to stay," she begs. "I can't," Celeste murmurs, her tone clipped. "Victor's untouchable. I won't risk it." The line goes dead, and I see Lila's shoulders slump further, her breath hitching as the reality sinks in. I've cut every thread, every lifeline she thought she had. She's alone now, forsaken by the world she built on my back. Back at the house, I watch her pack through the foyer camera, her movements slow and dazed. She crams designer gowns into suitcases, her hands trembling as she stuffs in jewelry and handbags, relics of a life she's losing. Her pride's fracturing, splintering with every zipper she pulls shut. Mara stops by once, the next evening, standing in the doorway with her arms crossed. I hear their exchange through the audio feed, Mara's voice tight. "I talked to Dad," she says. "He's paying half my tuition if I prove I can stand on my own." Lila looks up, hope flickering in her eyes. "Mara, please." "No." Mara cuts her off. "I'm done running to you. You always said Dad was boring, that we deserved more. Well, he did something about it." She turns and leaves, and I see Lila's face crumple, the last piece of her old world slipping away. On the third day, the movers I hired arrive at noon, looming in the driveway like sentinels. They're not here to help her. They're here to enforce her exile, to report back that she's gone. I watch her take one last look around the house. The glass walls, the sleek furniture, the ocean view she once ruled like a queen. She walks out, dragging her cases, and I track her Tesla to a grim studio in Salinas. Peeling walls, buzzing lights, a ghost of her past. Friends vanish into the ether. Julian stays silent, his phone disconnected. She pawns rings and bags, clawing at survival with the $2,000 monthly stipend I've left her. Barely enough for rent and food, a lifeline I could have cut but didn't. Months crawl by, and I see her take a job clerking at a Monterey art supply store through a hacked street cam. It's soul-crushing, ringing up paints and brushes for artists who don't know her name, but it keeps her afloat. Meanwhile, I soar. Grayson Dynamics goes global, contracts piling up, my name gold in the tech world. A year later, a gala photo hits the feeds. Me with a new woman, stunning and sharp, her hand on my arm. Lila's erased, a footnote I've scrubbed clean. Then, a flicker of fight. She finds a Cayman account, $300,000, a crack I missed in my sweep. I catch it through a banking alert I'd set up, and I watch her hire a lawyer, a sleazy guy in a cheap suit, aiming to tear the prenup apart. She thinks she's got me, that she's found a way back. But he digs too far, unearthing her tax dodges. Millions siphoned over the years, unreported, hidden in offshore shells. The IRS swoops in, snatches the cash, and buries her in fines she can't pay. Her lawyer bails, and my legal team pounces, suing her for fraud. Jail looms, her greed tightening the noose around her neck. Then the twist hits. That $15 million inheritance she lost? I didn't keep it. I donated it to an Oakland STEM scholarship fund. Her mother's dream she'd mocked as sentimental nonsense. Her betrayal birthed their futures, not hers. I don't lift a finger. Fate does the work. I watch her slump in that Selena studio, summons in hand, tears streaking her face, through a feed I'd left running. I've won. The cosmos judged. She's nothing forever. But it doesn't end there. A year later, Mara emails me, now a junior coder at a startup in San Francisco. Dad, she writes, thanks for the lesson. I'm building something real on my own terms. I read it in my study, the ocean crashing below, and feel a flicker of pride. Lila sees it too, on a smuggled phone in a Monterey County jail cell, her fraud case locking her away for 5 years. She's a shadow now, a wisp of the woman who once ruled my world. I don't reply to Mara's email. I don't need to. The universe spoke, and Lila's its echo, fading into silence. Hey, if my story of betrayal and revenge hooked you, I'd love to hear what you think. Drop a comment below. Did Lila deserve her downfall, or did I go too far? Share this with a friend who'd vibe with the drama, and hit that like button if it kept you on edge. I've got more tales like this brewing, raw, real, and unfiltered. So smash that subscribe button and ring the bell to catch the next one. Let's keep the conversation going. What's your take on infidelity's price?